Hello, and welcome once again to my continuing series on the facts about life, on the human condition, on human nature, and the best way forward towards a prosperous, happy, and wonderful future for yourself, for your families, for all of us. Today, I want to reinforce in you the thought and idea that life is worth the living. There are so many tremendous aspects, wonderful aspects to human life. So much of what we do and the rewards that we receive here have to do with our obligations and our duties to ourselves and to others. That we may succeed in life gives us great hope. Hope in the future. Hope that our life here is worth living and has great purpose. Along with the consolations of faith, perhaps three other passionate human interests have provided the incentive to the performance of one's duty and given people a reason for believing that life is worth the living. Paramount is the belief that there is a divine purpose behind one's existence and that one's spiritual self continues beyond our earthly life as a human. Second is to believe that one's life and the life of one's children and one's family will be improved through effort, and that merit will be rewarded. And thirdly, to hold that the acquisition and bestowal of property through honest effort is honorable and good. These concepts and moral values give people confidence that their participation in life is just and rewarding and has meaning. People yearn to believe that they are a loved child of a loving parent. People want to believe that in the divine moral order that has been established by our loving parent, that they and their families are loved and are an indispensable part of creation, and that they count for so much more than the fleeting flies of summer. When people like me and people like you, when people through faith come to believe these truths. Their lives, my life has, your life has and will be, their lives become enriched and empowered. These truths lead people into conducting and enjoying happy and successful lives. It's what I want for all of you. Self-awareness, happiness, independence, good character, and a successful life. I'm going to digress here a little bit and move into some thoughts about some great poets and what they have had to tell us. For they do provide insight into what we need to find success in life. I'm going to turn away from statisticians and sociologists and the political pundits and people of that sort for a time and just focus on a couple of great poets. As we try to soberly address and solve the vexing problems that face us today, let us turn for help to the genius of the great and true poet. Great poets have an insightful way of describing the human condition and the varying aspects of life we encounter, while here, living out our lives as humans. One of the most principled, conservative thinkers about human nature and the human conditions was T.S. Eliot, a great 20th century poet. In his poem, Wasteland, he pointed out the ends of Marxist social philosophy and its robotic collectivism and the harm it portends and causes to our immortal soul, our true spiritual self. One of the kindliest of men, Eliot entered with some reluctance upon political controversy, but once engaged in the struggle, he bore himself with courage. He took up the defense of the beliefs and customs that nourish civilization. He was bitterly aware that godless liberalism was destroying the ancient edifices to make ready the ground upon which the barbarian nomads of the future will encamp in their mechanized caravans. He warned that the tendency of unlimited industrialism is to create bodies of men and women of all classes, detached from tradition, alienated from religion, and susceptible to mass suggestion. In other words, a mob. And we certainly seem to be deluged with mob mentality and mob action these days. As much as anyone in his time, Eliot foresaw the destruction of order and the disrespect for legitimate authority that liberal beliefs and policies would result in. His love of God, of true liberty, and all of humanity impelled him to take up his sword of truth, and he labored tirelessly to stem moral decay. He once asked, "Do you think that lions no longer need keepers?" Eliot well knew that until the end of time, lions, that is to say, the beast in all of us, that aspect of us will always need keepers to guard the gate of bestiality. Through the whole of Eliot's writings, there runs the idea of a community of souls, a bond of love and duty, joining all of the living. As well, he saw a bond with those who preceded us and those who will in time follow us in this grand experience and adventure of living life as a human. Another great American poet, Stanley Kunitz, wrote, "Old myths, old gods, old heroes have never died. They are sleeping at the bottom of our mind, waiting for our call. We have need of them. They represent the wisdom of our race, the human race." I say, let us revere them and use them again, our wisdom traditions and God's laws of virtue. The good and true poets of today are not looking for a brave new world, a perfected utopia. Instead, they look to restore America to what it once was, a nation dedicated to advancing the cause of virtue in the world. They reimagine America as a God-loving nation that reveres our God-given liberties and, above all else, recognize these liberties as the royal pathway to virtue. So, instead of, like the liberal progressive whose love of country means blowing it all to smithereens and starting from year zero once again, instead of that insanity, let us restore to our public consciousness what once was. Restore that in ways that will find us once again directed on the pathways to happiness. Truly, when anyone comes to an awareness of one's own true spiritual self, and discovers the true purposes of life, that person automatically becomes committed to their own moral and ethical improvement. They are a boon to society because they have either intuitively or consciously committed themselves to habitually practicing God's laws of virtue. God's laws of virtue are the salvation to every ill, whether the ill be personal or political or governmental. If people of affairs can rise to the summons, the good moral norms of culture and integrity in politics may yet endure, despite the follies and the foibles of our modern times. Let us use the wisdom contained in the history of our species to lead us forward to that which is good and true. Our wisdom traditions and God's laws of virtue will not fail us. I know this is true. Even though, as you well have recognized in your life, even though the individual human is typically quite foolish and often stupid, our species is indeed wise in ways that we may yet again use. And, of course, God is infallibly good and is our loving spiritual parent and awaits only our call to enter our lives and be with us daily. He is, of course, God, beyond gender certainly, but I use he in the old traditional sense. Always with us, omnipresent in our lives, recognizing us continually, whether or not we are aware of God's presence or not. It is indeed the hallmark of a life well lived to recognize that truth and enjoy that lovingness that comes from our loving parent. It is what I wish for all of you, that incredible, intimate communion with our loving parent, the infallibly good God Almighty. What a nice prayer for you, for me, for everyone. The prayer of communion with our loving, infinitely loving parent, God Almighty. Well, that's it for today. Nice to be with you again. Another extended episode, almost 20 minutes in this one. But we're getting near the end. I believe I have only a few episodes left. It's so much pleasure to do this for you. So much fun to be with you today. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for being with me through this long adventure into the facts about life. I love you all. Goodbye.